Can we cross the various stages in a short time? I have told you that time is an insignificant factor in this process. This is a jump and it depends on you how courageous you are and how deep you can dive. If you are a coward, you shall take each step very slowly. But if you have the nerves, then you shall jump at once. If you are timid, you shall let the Guru hold your hand with hesitation and after much thinking. But if you are fearless, you shall at once offer everything and especially yourself in his feet. It depends upon you how much you open up before him or to what extent you can devote yourself. The more you do so, the better you shall progress and the deeper you shall be able to enter into yourself. This is not a school where you can go on passing one class after another. This is a process in which obtaining the kindness of the Guru matters the most. When the Guru feels that a disciple is trying to realize his true form, when he believes that he is becoming a part of his life, when he observes that the disciple is trying to fuse himself into the Guru, when he feels that the disciple experiences pain, when he, the Guru, is hurt, then he knows that the disciple is trying to move from his physical body to link himself with his own soul. And when the process of linking oneself with one's soul begins, then another process of fusing and becoming one with the Guru also begins simultaneously. Just as milk mixes completely into milk and a river becomes one merging into the sea, similarly a disciple can become one with the Guru. If we wish, we cannot separate the water of the river from that of the ocean because both blend completely into each other. Similar is the state of a disciple when with determination he decides to move forward without stopping and becomes one with the Guru. He does not care whether he loses his name or his life. He is like the river because the river on mixing with the ocean loses its sweet water and its name. But it does not care because then it comes to be known as an ocean while earlier it was just a small river. Similarly, when a disciple forgets about himself and starts to lose himself in the divine form of the Guru in just one moment takes him to the state of totality and divinity called Dhyan. The more he shows faith in the Guru, the more the Guru helps the disciple to progress on this path. The closer the disciple gets to the Guru, the more the Guru encourages the disciple to move forward. It hence depends upon the disciple whether he devotes himself completely or partially. When one is partially devoted, the Guru as a spectator keeps analyzing the disciple's progress. He knows that the disciple has progressed only 10% in fusing with his soul, hence he helps the disciple to enter into himself only 10%. He cannot take the disciple further, it is impossible. But the moment the Guru decides to take the disciple to the highly elevated state, then disciple may have 1,000 shortcomings and he may be at any stage. The Guru picks him up and places him into the ocean of Dhyan. In a trice, he takes the disciple into that ocean where Purna Brahma is reclining on a bed of Sheshanag's curled up body. A Sadguru can take even an ordinary and sinful person like Ajamil in one stroke to the ocean of Dhyan. These two processes, that is, the devotion of the disciple and the kindness of the Guru, are directly proportional to each other. The harder a disciple strives, the more the Guru gives support and encourages him to move on. Hence one can reach the state of Dhyan in just 1 second or in 5,000 years. It all depends on the actions, thoughts and the devotion of the disciple. Only through the amount of devotion the Guru can decide that now is the time to take the disciple into the state of Dhyan, which has been called by different names like Brahmatva, Purnatva, Purnamadah Purnamidam, Paramahamsavastha and Ishwar in the Shastras. When a human attains the state of godliness, he reaches the highest pedestal of life. The highest state of life is that in which a Nar transforms into Narayan. When an ordinary person achieves totality, then the whole world looks up to him with expectation and he becomes capable of working for the welfare of thousands and millions. He may live in a family, he may marry, he may face happiness and sorrows, losses and gains, but he ever remains in a spiritually awakened state. But first, one needs to reach that state, and to do so is indeed a very difficult process. The key to reaching this state lies in only one word: devotion. The Guru tests a disciple 1,000 times before the disciple devotes himself. To make a crown of gold, the gold is heated hundreds of times, it is beaten into sheets and pulled into fine wires. But the gold does not mind because it has given itself up into the capable hands of the goldsmith, and the goldsmith gives it a shape of a crown which then adorns the heads of gods in the temples. Similarly, a guru subjects a disciple to hard tests, at the same time giving him moral and spiritual support. He carefully observes what the disciple does when he says something harsh, or how he fares when he is subjected to rigorous tests. The guru tests a disciple, and the disciple, with care and alertness, tries to remain linked with the guru. In this struggle, the disciple who comes out victorious is raised to the state of dhyan by the guru. The more the disciple proves his devotion, the faster the guru helps him cover each step of this path. You have used the words alertness and sakshi bhav. What do you mean by them? Alertness means that the disciple has to remain ever vigilant. Every moment he should be aware that he has to reach that state where even his past 25 generations could not reach. His thoughts are, I don't want to take birth and die. I want to do something new, something unique in itself. The person who entertains such a thought in his mind is said to be alert. He knows what his aim is and what he has to do. To be alert, he has to leave his mother, father, brother, sister, relatives and friends because he can either love his family members or his guru. These two constitute two ends of an arrow. The arrow is one, but its one end is sharp and the other end is blunt. If the disciple chooses the blunt end, then he shall miss his chance. Just as his forefathers died, he too would die and reach the graveyard. On the other hand, if he chooses the other sharp end, it shall keep pricking him, and he shall always remain alert with his goal clear to him. And alertness is the best state of life which one attains with great difficulty. One who remains alert shall always keep in mind, I have to devote myself. The Guru may pass any command. I don't have to think why he has given this order, for it is his task to give orders. If I understand his ways, I shall myself become a Guru. I am just a disciple, a lump of clay. It is up to him what shape he gives to me. I have given myself into his hands. He may give me the shape of a pot or a lamp. It is up to him. But he shall surely give me some shape. If he turns me into a lamp, I shall be able to dispel darkness from this world. If he turns me into a pot, I shall be able to quench the thirst of millions. The clay does not have to think, it should only remain alert that it has to always remain in the hands of the pot maker. Sakshi Bhava means living in this world among all material comforts but only as a spectator. A man sitting in a cinema hall keeps watching the movie without any sign of happiness or sorrow on his face regarding the scenes in the movie. He knows he has just bought a ticket and is sitting there. He knows that after 3 hours he will leave. This is Sakshi Bhav. Even in life, a person should have Sakshi Bhav for his mother, brother, father, wife and relatives. Such a person does not get deeply involved in life. He keeps watching what is going on without being affected. His mother asks him to do something, he does it. His wife requests something, he fulfills it. He listens to everybody but remains ever alert and remembers, this is not the goal of my life. These people say something, I listen to them. They ask me to do something, I do it. But that is all. The basic aim of my life is not to end my life thus. He knows that he has to enter into his physical self and has to reach the state of Brahmatva, Ishwaratva or Narayanatva. Only on reaching that state, the whole world shall look up to him and the coming generations shall praise not only him but his parents and his family as well. When we remember Lord Krishna, we also remember his beloved Radha. When we think of Krishna, we also think of his parents, Yashoda and Nand, because all of them are linked to him. A person who remains alert devotes himself completely in the Sadguru's feet and reaches the state of Dhyan and Samadhi. His parents too get respect in the society and are considered fortunate to have given birth to such a great disciple. Such a disciple becomes the foremost personality of his generation as he reaches the state of Dhyan, which denotes Purnamada or totality in life. Then he lives in this world with a Sakshi Bhav. He always thinks of the welfare of the world at large, but still remains devoted in the feet of the Guru. The disciple in himself denotes a throne on which the God has to be placed. When the throne itself is not there or is thousands of miles away, then where shall the God be established? Hence he keeps himself detached from this world. He does think of his parents, brothers, sisters, but only with a Sakshi Bhav. The mother has her own moments of happiness and sorrows, and the father has his own. Each one gets fruits according to one's actions. He keeps watching everyone standing still. But his body, his soul denoting a throne, remains in the hands of the Guru because he knows that the Guru shall establish in it the image of the God, the Brahma. What does one mean by Brahmacharya? Can a householder too go into Dhyan? What does one mean by Sadhu? Are Sadhutva or Brahmacharya important for going into Dhyan? The word Brahmacharya has all along been interpreted wrongly. No other word has been put to such a misuse as this one. We think that remaining unmarried is Brahmacharya or that an unmarried person is a Brahmachari. In fact, Brahmacharya means following the principles of Brahma, behaving like Brahma. One who does so is a Brahmachari, and a person can go into a state of Brahmacharya only after reaching or realizing the Brahma. Dhyan and Brahmacharya are in no way directly related to each other. For going into Dhyan, it is not necessary to be a Brahmachari because Brahmacharya is the last stage of Dhyan. Only on reaching that stage shall a person be called a Brahmachari. How can then one be a Brahmachari in the beginning? In the beginning, he shall be called only a Sharirachari, that is, a person who lives worrying about only his physical being. Brahmacharya is a state of a very later stage because a person who realizes Brahma and follows its principles is a Brahmachari. Janaka was a complete man and a king. He had hundreds of wives, but still he was a full Brahmachari. Krishna had 16,000 wives, but still he was a complete Brahmachari because he had realized the Brahma. Hence one may be a wife, a husband or a lover and can still be a Brahmachari. And what do we mean by Sadhuta? Just wearing saffron robes is not Sadhuta. A Sadhu is one who can fully concentrate his mind, who is free of all passions, who remains unaffected on seeing a woman, who has learnt Sakshi Bhav and who has become capable of controlling all his senses and his thoughts. This does not mean that only a sadhu can go into Dhyan. In fact, a sadhu can go into Dhyan with great difficulty. A sadhu has curbed all his desires and his passions. Hence, if he goes into Dhyan, his desires, his passions will try to come to the fore because everything that is curbed effortfully is bound to rise. Therefore, as soon as he closes his eyes, the image of a girl appears in his mind and he is not able to enter the depths of Dhyan. But a person who has once seen what a woman is, what cohabitation is, what a son, happiness, sorrows and comforts are, shall have no desire left. Hence, a householder can go into dhyan better and deeper. Of course, a sadhu too can go into dhyan. If he has really forsaken everything and if he has fully acquired a Sakshi Bhav, then he can very easily go into dhyan. Hence, to go into dhyan, it is neither necessary to be unmarried nor is it essential to get married. It is neither essential to be a man nor is it essential to be a woman. And it is also not necessary to go and sit in a graveyard or in the Himalayas. You may be in any condition, but you must have a deep desire, a firm determination and devotion. To go into dhyan, three things are essential. First is Sakshi Bhav, that is, you should look at the world with Sakshi Bhav and must remain linked with the Guru. Second is devotion, that is, you should, through your thoughts, soul and actions, devote yourself fully in the Guru's feet. After devoting yourself, you shall feel incapable of thinking, analyzing or deciding about anything because then it shall be the duty of the Guru to think about you. Full devotion means that you don't even have to think what or why a Guru is doing something. Third is firm determination and a strong willpower. You should be determined and must think, in this life itself, I have to go beyond this physical body to the state of dhyan and totality. Hence, these three things are necessary for going into dhyan, and sadhuta or brahmacharya do not at all form the primary requirements.